Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a bit of a controversial video idea that was kind of inspired by me being too lazy to swap out the bars here for my RDLs on my day 3 training. And that's simply, why did I initially choose a federation where there was no deadlift bar involved? And why have I never gotten into using a deadlift bar myself? And I say this is going to be controversial because some of my opinions and thoughts for me personally may kind of rile up some people in their thoughts about the deadlift bar. But, you know, that's totally fine. And I want to preface this by saying that my choices are in no way kind of like projecting out on anyone else. I think the deadlift bar is awesome, and if you pull a lot of weight on the deadlift bar or without the deadlift bar, then it is equally as cool to me. But I am just sharing my kind of thoughts on the bar and the implements, and this can also apply to things like lifting and equipment and knee wraps as well. Both are things that I have done in the past, so don't kind of confuse this with me being anti anything. It's just kind of sharing my thoughts. So kind of taking it back to whenever I was first choosing a federation and choosing where to lift and all of that good stuff, whenever thinking about a deadlift, you usually have two camps. You have people who use a deadlift bar, and then you have people, and I think it's hilarious because if you do use a deadlift bar, usually you denote a regular power bar as a stiff bar, which to me is kind of funny because it's just a regular bar, right? So it's not a deadlift on a stiff bar, it's just a deadlift. But anyway, my thought process has always been the less qualifiers that I need to have about my lifts, the better, or at least for me mentally. And what I mean by qualifier is I don't want to also have to say something about the lift whenever I'm just talking to someone on the street. Like, there was a time I lifted single ply, and if someone asked me what I squatted, I didn't max out raw enough to know what my raw squat was. So I would have to say my equipped squat, you know, maybe at the time it was like 700 pounds. But I would say, but that's with a squat suit and knee wraps. And there would be a loss in translation, I felt like. And it was just weird conversing that way. And it's the same thing with a deadlift bar. You know, if you pull 700 pounds on a deadlift bar, well, most people probably won't denote it, but I just knew I would know it in my head, you know, oh, I pull 700 pounds on a deadlift bar. And I didn't like the idea of, like, if I got used to pulling on a deadlift bar and then I went to a gym, say for travel, like this week I traveled to Savannah and those gyms didn't have deadlift bars, you know, I would have to adjust my deadlift numbers, and that's an extra variable that needs to be considered. And mentally, that would kind of hurt me. I'd be like, well, I can only deadlift this much on a normal bar that's at every gym in the country, or I can deadlift this amount on this special bar made for deadlifting, made to physically advantage a deadlift as, you know, you're pulling. It's made to bend. Similar idea to like knee wraps in the squat. It's like, well, I couldn't do my knee wrap squat just with, you know, regular equipment. I would have to take the time to physically wrap my knees and go through the whole kind of pony show. And that's where I have to convey to you all, I understand these things are a part of the sport of powerlifting. So that's where it gets in, like nothing against knee wraps or a deadlift bar, but that was my thought process getting into the sport. And don't get me wrong, I use knee sleeves and a belt, right? You could use that conversation, but that's what I thought. So just overall, it never made sense or appealed to me to primarily deadlift on a deadlift bar because I felt like the number that I would do would only be doable on that specific implement that was made to benefit me. So Thank you all for hearing that rant out. I just wanted to share that. I'm curious what your all's thoughts are on deadlift bars. Do you use one? Are you for one? Are you against it? I would say I sit somewhere in the middle, but personally, I have no interest in using one myself, just because that's kind of how I am. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Drop a like and comment down below what you think. And until next time, happy lifting.